where can you make a lot of money for the least amount of down payment? And that term is called cash on cash. I didn't know what cash on cash was then, but that's the term. That's what I was trying to do. I just didn't know what it was called. And cash on cash, just to describe to your listeners, is if you put a $100,000 down payment down on a property and you then net $50,000 a year, that's 50% cash on cash. And basically that my cash on cash was higher than that in the Smokies when I was investing in 2018. So what I ended up doing to figure out where to go is I jumped on Bigger Pockets, and I jumped on, I was looking in the apartment forums, and they're like, yeah, you can make this, and it's hard, and you grind, and you got to get commercial notes. And I'm like, oh, that sounds like a lot of work. And then I jump into the short-term rental forums, and people are talking about, how do you, basically how the rough rule of thumb for most markets is you can earn 2.5 times short-term rent what you would normally make for long-term rent. So for example, if you were going to rent a place out for $1,000 a month, you can get $2,500 a month on Airbnb typically. And that isn't always the case. And there's certain markets that are even higher than that. And the Smokies happens to be one of them. So in the Smokies, the other two things that make it significantly easier is because it's a secondary home market. The entire market is secondary homes. They're sold turnkey. So you have your silverware, your artwork, your couches, your furniture. So I literally would close midweek and I had everything rented out that first weekend.
Right.
So 3 or 4 days later, money is coming in.
Because people don't want to take their 10-year-old, couch from the Smoky Mountains back to their house in Virginia or whatever.
That every renter has slept on, right?
Yeah, exactly.
And then the other thing that makes it really powerful, and it's still very powerful to this day, is you can get a second home loan for 10% down if you don't have another home there and you're planning on spending 14 days or more a year there, which I do. Or you can get an investment loan, and that's 15% down. And then the fascinating thing about the investment loan is you can use the projected income from the property you're buying to cover the debt to income.
Right.
So if you're at 40% debt to income in your life already, as long as you have a down payment and decent credit, the places in the Smokies typically throw off enough to easily cover 40% debt to income from what the projection is of that property.
Yeah, and this is interesting because a lot of people who might be watching this are already familiar with the lending world, the real estate world, whatever. But there is that niche. If you're in the conforming market, you're buying a second home with 5, 10, 15% down, depending on how you structure it in the occupancy. I mean, it's a really great way to leverage cash on cash. In my world in Southern California, or now even in the Las Vegas area where I own a second home, you're looking at minimum $600,000 entry level point. Then you start to talk about, areas out in like Palm Springs, La Quinta, where they do Coachella and things like that. Now for a decent house with a pool that you would be, kind of sexy to rent on Airbnb. Now you're talking about 7, 8, 900,000, $1 million. All of a sudden, like your cash on cash, you got to have that thing rented a significant number of nights for it to make sense on the upfront capital. If I'm shelling out 100, 150, 200 grand.